Now, China's President Xi Jinping has emphasised the need to strengthen national security in his first address since being handed a historic third term as president. Xi became China's most powerful leader in generations last week when he was re-elected by the National People's Congress for another 5 years. The NPC was also electing Liu Chong, one of Chinese President Xi's most trusted allies, as the new premier over this weekend. Our China correspondent Stephen McDonnell has been following all the developments at the National People's Congress.
This is a rubber stamp session where senior cadres of the Communist Party just turn up and do what's required to make these appointments happen. For example, Xi Jinping became new president without a single dissenting vote. That said, at the end of the Congress, he made a speech and he spoke about this great wall of steel that China's military needed to be modernised and also state security needed to be toughened up. He said that these two things were important to have stability in China. Now, once he made that speech, the next thing that happens on the last day is this sort of annual, highly choreographed press event where the number two leader, the premier, takes some questions from selected media. Now, the message from that press event was that China is still a friendly place to do business. Li Chang said that it doesn't matter what your structure is, what type of ownership you have for your company, you'll be treated equally in China. Now, this followed, of course, the tech crackdown in this country and the concern that there has been that various senior executives just seem to disappear here when they're being questioned by Communist Party discipline inspection officers. So a lot of concern there in the private sector that it isn't such a friendly place to do business. Well, he's trying to say to the gathered media and through them the rest of the world that this is still a place which is not only friendly to do business, but which is still open to more sort of opening up, if I could put it that way, to the rest of the world.
Stephen McDonnell there. Well, we also spoke to Charles Parton, a former senior China diplomat now working with the Mercator Institute for China Studies, and he gave us his assessment of the National People's Congress.
Well, let's first of all put it into context. I don't think that the two meetings, as they call them, the National People's Congress and the Chinese People's Political Consultative Committee, are any way as important as the Party Congress, which happened at the end of the last year. That's where power really comes from the party and from the control of the military. And Xi as president is not that important. It adds a bit of aura and a bit of authority, but I think we need to put that into context. I mean, what we've seen in the last sort of 10 days of the National People's Congress, etc., is it's morale boosting. It's setting out the priorities and publicising them. It's ratified certain government positions, but the party was always going to be in control there. So and they've consulted and taken the temperature, but I don't think we should get too carried away by what's happened in the last 10 days.
We're seeing on the other side of the world the AUKUS meeting, and we've seen these increased public tensions, haven't we, between the US, its Western allies, and China. What is the Chinese response to that? We saw some very heightened language in the last few days.
Well, I think it continues as it's always been, in the sense that what is the basis of Chinese foreign policy is a very profound anti-Americanism. I mean, in many ways, Xi Jinping has stimulated that by some of his policies over the last few years. So an AUKUS is a reaction to that, just as perhaps the increasing defense budget of the Japanese is a reaction to the way the Chinese are behaving in the East China Sea and the South China Sea and the Pacific in general. So yes, tensions are worsening between China and what one might call free and open countries. And that's one of the headwinds that I think Xi Jinping is facing. But there are plenty of other domestic ones as well. So, the mood at the NPC this time was, well, brace yourselves, guys, there's tough work ahead. And this is just part of it, an increasingly hostile world towards China.
And just to ask the Taiwan question, what is your reading of that? Do you expect tensions around Taiwan to increase soon, or do you think it is some way off?
Well, first of all, I mean, everyone asks, is there going to be an invasion or a really serious blockade? The answer is no, not in the next decade, as far as I'm I can see. But that is not to say that tensions won't be heightened. Of course, the Chinese Communist Party wants to convince people that it could and might invade. That's part of increasing the pressure upon Taiwan. So I think we're going to see measures against Taiwan, and increasingly we'll see measures against free and open countries that support Taiwan. So it's another point of contention between China and the free and open world.